Completing the square. Completing the square. Method used to solve quadratic equations. Will solve all quadratics. It allows you to get the quadratics in a form that can be solved by square roots. Completing the square steps. Get equation into ax squared plus bx equals c form. Factor out the a on the left side if necessary. Take half of b and square it. Add that number to both sides. Factor the left side. Solve the quadratic using square roots. Okay, let's practice. So our first step is to get the equation into the form ax squared plus bx equals c. This is already in that form. A is 1, so I do not need to factor it. So I'm going to take half of b, which is 5, square it, which is 25. And now I'm going to add that number to both sides. Now I'm going to factor the left side. Now I'm going to solve by using the square root. Subtract 5 from both sides. So x equals 1 and x equals negative 11. Okay, next example. I am going to make sure that the equation is in the form ax squared plus bx equals c. So I need to add 93 to both sides. Now I'm going to take half of b and square it and add that number to both sides. Now I'm going to factor the left side. So for factoring, we're going to square the first term and square root the first term and square root the last term and take the sign of the middle. Now I'm going to solve the equation by square root. Add 6 to both sides, so my answer is x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 129. Okay, so I need to get this in the form of ax squared plus bx equals c. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Now I need to factor out the a. So I'm going to divide by 2. Now I'm going to take half of b and square it and add that number to both sides. So here I'm adding 1 to the left side, but it technically is 1 times 2, or 2 times 1, so I'm going to add 2 to the right side. Now I'm going to factor the left side. The square root of x squared is x, the square root of 1 is 1, and keep the sign of the middle. Now I'm going to divide by 2. Then solve by square root. Subtract 1 from both sides, and my answer is x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, I need to get this one into the form of ax squared plus bx equals c. So I'm going to subtract x squared and 2x, or 2, from both sides. So 2x squared minus 24x equals negative 1. Now I need to factor out the a. Now I'm going to take half of b and square it. Add that number to both sides. But don't forget that this is technically not a 36, it's 2 times 36. So I'm going to add 72 to the right side. Now I'm going to factor the left side, so the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 36 is 6, and 12 is negative, so x minus 6. Then divide by 2. Then solve by square root, add 6, and x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 71 over 2. Okay, so I need to add 9 to both sides in order to get this into the form ax squared plus bx equals c. Now I'm going to take half of b, 2, which is 1, square it, and becomes 1. I'm going to add that number to both sides. Now I'm going to factor the left side, so the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 1 is 1, and we're going to take the sign of the middle. Then I'm going to solve by using square roots. So x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 10. Now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 10. Okay, so I'm going to get this in the correct form, ax squared plus bx equals c, by adding 7 to both sides. Now I'm going to take half, I'm going to factor out negative 2. Now I'm going to take half of b, square it, and add that number to both sides. But don't forget, this 25 is not a 25, it's negative 2 times 25, so I'm going to add or subtract negative 50 from the right side. Then I'm going to factor the left side, so the square root of x squared is x, the square root of 25 is 5, and my middle sign is positive. Then I'm going to divide by negative 2. Then I'm going to solve by square root. Then I'm going to subtract 5, so my answer is x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 35 divided by 2. You can use completing the square to write quadratics in vertex form. Remember, vertex form is y equals a, parentheses x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so the first step is to get the equation in the form ax squared plus or minus, or ax squared plus bx equals c. So I need to add my c to the left side. So 9 will be added to both sides. So y plus 9 equals x squared minus 2x. I do not have an a to factor out, so I'm going to take half of b and square it. So half of 2 and square it. So 1. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Now I'm going to factor the left side. In this case, it will be the right side. So x squared, the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 1 is 1, and my sign is negative. Now I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. Now my equation is vertex form. Y equals parentheses x minus 1 squared minus 10. Okay, let's try it on this side. So I'm going to start by adding 3 to both sides to get it in the correct form. I do not have an a to factor out, so now I'm going to take half of b and square it. So half of 10, which is 5, and square it, 25. I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Now I'm going to factor the right side. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 25 is 5. Now I'm going to subtract 28, and my answer is y equals parentheses x plus 5 squared minus 28.